G'day one and all. So today we're going to make our first class. So let's get the Visual Studio up here and make a new project. Game Studio. Create it wherever you want, and boom, done. So today we're going to create a class, and there's a lot to do. So this might be a little long. So let's first copy this XNA stuff. And then what we're going to do is we're going to right click on your project name. Mine is Windows Game 5. Basically whatever one's the big bolded one. And we're going to go right click, add new item. It's going to be a class, and this class is going to be our Sprite class. So we'll call it Sprite. Sprite have an E at the end? I think so. Does it have an E at the end? I don't remember. Now I'm having a brain fart on, whoops. Now I'm having a brain fart. I know which Sprite, it does have it. Oh no, wait, that's this one. Oh no. Yeah, Sprite has an E at the end. Sorry, I had a complete brain fart there. So here's our first class. In the namespace, this is what's going to define where it's located. I'm going to call this one display for later. Play? Okay, I'm having a complete brain fart at how to spell things right now. Then we have our word class, which tells us it's a class, and the name of the class, which in this case is Sprite. Now by default, the access modifier is internal, so only anything within the display namespace will have access to Sprite. We don't want that. We want it to be public, so we'll change this to public at the front, the access modifier. So now anybody can use it as long as they're importing using. So they have to use using display. So C# offers these neat little things called regions. We'll just type in pound or hash mark, region, and we give it a tag, and we're going to call this tag fields. And then we put one at the end that's called end region. Simple, right? What these do is you'll notice there's a little minus mark over here in the corner. There we go. There, that's much better to see. Notice there's a little minus mark right here in the corner. If you press it, it actually condenses. So anything between these regions will actually condense, making it easier to read. And we'll do that. I'll show you later. Our next thing we're going to do is region properties and region constructors. Don't worry, I'm going to explain all this later as soon as we go through it. Region and pound region methods and region. This is how I usually like to set mine up. Fields, which are data members, properties, which are accessors to the fields, constructors, which set up the creation of the class, and methods, which define the functionality of the class. These are just all technical terms. So let's get some fields going. We'll put some fields in the middle here. So what's the first thing we need for a sprite? Well, we need a texture. So we need the texture 2D. We're going to call it texture. There we go. Now, by default, it's private. So meaning there's no way to access this except inside the class. If you want to add anything to inherit, which we'll get into later, you have to have protected, which we don't want. You might want it. It's actually a pretty good idea. It's kind of a give and take if you want stuff to be protected or private, but I'll explain that later. Or if you want everyone to see it, public. That means anybody can change this, but we don't quite want that. I'll explain later, in a few seconds actually. The next thing we need to ask that name to load the property, so we're going to have a string. By default, this is private, so you can actually also do this. It's still valid. I think I'll do that just for clarity. And private, not tring. And then we're going to call this string an asset name. You can also call it an ass name if you want. That's all good, as long as it helps you remember. And then what we're going to do is we are going to have other stuff. We're going to have a vector 2 position, vector 2 origin. We are also going to have a float scale. Float rotation. I might need something else later. I can't remember offhand. We'll need a color. We're going to call this tint. This is going to determine the tint. As Sprite Effects. We're going to call it Sprite Effects. This will come into play a little bit later. So that's what we need so far. So here is, well, comment the stuff later, but here is our texture. This is the asset name to load this texture. This is all the stuff to do all the translation and stuff like that. So if you want to spin around or get bigger or smaller, whatever you want. And this changes the tint, and Sprite Effects just determines whether it's facing left or right, up or down. And I'll show you that later. I never added the privates, so let's just copy these. Good thing for auto formatting. Okay, didn't auto format these because it's a bastard. Right, so there's all of our fields set up. That's most of. I think I might be missing one here. I can't remember. We'll find out as I go. Next, we're going to need properties for all these fields. And what a property is it allows access to these private members to anybody who wants to use them, but it gives us the control to what happens. So our first one's going to be called, it's going to be access modifier public. It's going to be taking and returning a texture 2D, and we're going to call it texture. Usually the naming convention is to call the property the same thing as the field, but add, or this is my convention, add a capital at the beginning. While this stuff here all has, notice it all has lowercase, but the properties have the uppercase. And I think Microsoft does that as well, you'll notice. And the properties have two things, get, and set. But I didn't really, stop doing that. Get out of there. What a get does is a get is going to return the field of this type, which is going to be this field. So we're going to want to return texture. Be careful, do not return capital texture. This will cause an infinite loop, so it's going to come in, it's going to try to return this, which is going to call this, try to return this, which is going to call this. Get what I mean? So it's going to continually call itself until the program breaks. So make sure you do the right texture. The next one is set. And what set is going to do is it's going to set, I guess, yeah, we would want it to, you can determine what has a get and what has a set, but we're going to set the texture, and there's going to be a keyword value. Value is type whatever is being taken in here. So that's going to be type texture. It's going to set the texture to this. Cool, eh? You can determine, you don't always need a set. If you have a get, it allows only access, so people can access it, but they can't change it. That will be important later. Or you can have a set where people can only set stuff but never get to it. So let's create some more of this stuff. So access modifier, the type we're returning, which is a string, because we're going to do the next one, which is asset name, get, return asset name, set asset name equals value. So you getting the idea now? So we want to create one for each single one. So if you'll give me a second there, I shall be right back. Alright, so I got my properties in. I also changed Sprite Effects to flip because I realized when you do the property, it's going to be basically the same thing as Sprite Effects. You don't want to do that. That will cause a problem. I could have just called it Sprite Effect instead of Effects, but whatever, I'll call it flip because that's basically what it does. So there's all my properties for everything. So that will allow access. I'll go into reasons why later, why you want to do that, because, you know, this is going to take a long video. Next up, we're going to do our constructors. Constructors are what are used when you create the object, and it's initialized as values to their defaults. And usually they are, so you need the access modifier, in this case public, so everyone can access it. There are cases where you want them to be protected or private, and that will come a little later. There's no return type like you would in methods, and then you'll understand a little later. It's just simply the name of the class, and then parentheses. Put our angle brackets there, and we're going to set our values. So we're going to call asset name equals nothing. Then we have position, which equals vector to dot. Now hitting the dot after declaring a class name like this gets you the static members. These are ones that aren't set to, these are ones where you don't have to have an actual instance of the class. It belongs to the class and not in the instance. I'll explain static a little later. But we're going to set it to 0. So this will set a new vector to default 0. And then we're going to have origin vector 2 dot 0. That sets the origin to 0. Now scale is going to actually equal 1.0f, and you'll understand why shortly. It might make sense. Basically, scale is going to determine how big or how small the texture is. I like how I'm using my hands and you guys can't see this, but if you have it set to 0 by default, you're going to not have any image on the screen, and you'll probably be tearing your hair out going, why do I not have an image? And this is why you want to set your stuff in the constructor, because floats by default, if you don't do it, if you don't create this, it does it for you. But this means that you're going to be sitting there going, why do I not have any object? Because it's going to set scale to 0. You want it to actually be F. Then we're going to have rotation. And rotation is going to be equal to 0, so that's good. Tint, we're just going to have it color dot white. I can spell white right. White right. Then flip, we're going to have equal Sprite Effects. See, color white and Sprite Effects, these are static properties. We're going to just have none. We don't want it to flip vertically, so Mario will face in the opposite direction, and horizontally where he'll face upside down. We just want it to be set to none by default. So that's our first constructor. So when we create this instance of Sprite with this constructor, it's just going to set all these values to the default, which is this, which is good. Another way to do it is you can actually declare them up here as well. But I always find it's best just to have a default constructor and declare it down here. So we have the one constructor that does the stuff. We can add more if we actually change the parameters. And the parameters are what go inside this brackets here. So right now it's going to complain because we have two instances of Sprite. However, if we have an instance of Sprite, Sprite with the T in a bracket, that takes in a string, set name. It's now completely different. And what this constructor is going to do is this constructor is going to set the asset name to asset name. But now how does it tell what asset name to set it to? Well, first we have to get the current instance of whatever the instance of this object. And how do we do that? We use the keyword this. So that means this dot asset name. So this instance asset name is going to be assigned to the one that's passed into the parameter. And that's how you tell the difference inside the class. So if you pass in parameters with the same name as fields in your class, you have to use the keyword. Otherwise, it's going to take this asset name. You took out the this dot. It's going to take this asset name right here. See? It's trying to assign the same thing. So we're going to do that. But we don't want to copy the rest of it. You can copy the rest of this down, but we don't want to do that. What we can do is we can create a cascading constructor call. And how we do that is we do a colon right before the curly bracket and right after the round bracket. And we say this, like I said, current instance, and call its constructor. So what's going to happen is it's going to come in here, and then it's going to go into its default constructor, which is the one up here, populate all this crap, then come out here and then assign the asset name to asset name. Pretty cool, huh? Saves you time. So let's create another one. I'm not going to create one for every single. You can create you can create as many of these as you want. Set name, and we're also going to take in a position. So vector do position, thank you. And this, and we don't want to call the default one. We already have one that takes in the asset name, so we'll call that one. Why not? Right? Makes sense? Boom. So the only thing left for us to do is do this dot position equals position. Cool, eh? So when we call this one, it's going to populate. It's going to call this one, which is going to call the one up top here, populate all the stuff. Then it's going to come back here, assign the asset name, come back here, and assign the position. And you can keep doing this. You can create one constructor for each different thing. I'm not going to do that. So those are our basic constructors. We're probably up to like 20 minutes now. I do apologize. So let's create some of the methods here. We need 3 methods. We're going to have a public. So for methods, you need the access modifier, the return type, which in this case is going to be void, the name of it, content. This is what you can tell is going to load our content. We're going to need something called the content manager. We're going to call it content manager. Right? Cool. Public void. Our second one is going to be our update. Update's going to handle all the logic, and it's going to take in game time. Game time. We're going to call it game time. Original. And for now, yeah. Oops. Our third and final one is going to be public access modifier, the return type, which is void, draw. And it's going to take in game time. This won't be relevant right now, but later it will be. And then the second one is going to be a sprite batch. The sprite batch will allow us to actually draw to the screen. So let's scroll down here. So there's our class set up so far. That's got everything we currently need. So let's do our load content. Load content? How do we load? Well, what do we want to load? We want to assign our texture. So we call the texture equals, and then we're going to use our content manager dot load. Give it the type which is a texture duty. And then we pass in, well, we can't pass in a literal string, right? Because we're not going to know what every texture is called. So how do we do it? Asset name. There we go. That doesn't matter what the hell you call. As long as you change your asset name variable, that will always load the proper content that you want. Awesome, right? Update for now, nothing's going to happen. So we'll leave a to do, so capital to do with a colon, and we'll say like matrix math stuff. So what will happen is if you open up in Windows View Task List, switch this to comments. There we go. all the to-dos. So you'll see, there it is. There's mine. Double click on it, takes you right to it. Cool, eh? So we won't worry about update for now. And finally, our draw. What's our draw going to do? Well, it's going to draw. So we're going to sprite batch dot draw. What are we going to pass it? We're going to pass it a couple of fields. It's not going to be our standard little one because we want this to be very functional. So we're going to do the first one. We're going to pass the texture, obviously. We're not going to pass the destination, right? We're going to do the position. There we go. We don't want the color tint. We want another one here. Number 6, I believe? Yeah, number 6. The next one's going to be null. I don't know what this one actually does. So we'll just put it as null. Rectangle, question mark, source rectangle. I don't know what that means. Next is going to be our color. So this is going to be our tint. Next one, rotation. See why I called this stuff that stuff? Next to is vector to origin. Oops, sorry. Next is sprite effects, so flip. And then float, layout, depth, 0.0. I'm not quite sure what that does. So this is a little more complicated, but it's very, very functional. It's not that scary. What are you complaining about now? I have an invalid argument somewhere. Excuse me while I was trying to figure this. I hate this crap. We have rotation, sprite effects. We'll skip forward here. Blah blah blah. Use null for drawing the entire texture. Okay. Color. Rotation. Origin. Didn't like this last time when I tested it. So what happened? Oh, I forgot my scale. Damn it. So scale between origin and sprite effects. There we go. That's much better. So that's a big one. We'll zoom out here a bit so you can see it. So that's a big one. But that's going to be really funny. So there's our sprite. So let's now implement this. I believe we have everything. So let's go to our game. And we're going to create our sprite by going up here. I'm going to say, oh, sorry. First thing we have to do is include it because it's not part of this namespace called Windows Game. So we have to say using display. Now it will understand what a sprite is. So it's going to go to the namespace display and look up sprite. We're going to call it Mario. We'll just set it like that. So in our initialize, remember I said this is where you do all your initialization? That's what we're going to do. So we're going to have Mario equal new sprite. And to save some time, I'm going to pass in asset name, which is called Mario, which I haven't imported. Maybe I should do that. That's a good idea, people. Thank you for reminding me. Let's drag these into our content. There we go. Sorry this is going fast, but there is a lot to do. It's called Mario's the asset name, and we're going to do new vector 2, and just to be, just to be simple, we're going to just hard code it to 200, 200. That's all good. So there's our Mario and everything, and he's going to have some fun there. So he's created. Now we come back to our load content. What do we want to do? We want to load our content. So how do we load our Mario? Mario.load content. We call the functionality. To load the content, passing in this dot content. There we go. That will load Mario properly. And update. We can call update on Mario, but we're not going to just yet. It doesn't really do anything. But we will write our code here for drawing. So remember what we had to do? We had to start and begin our sprite batch. So sprite batch begin. Sprite batch.end. There we go. Pretty cool, huh? Not really, but now we're gonna draw our Mario. So how do we draw our Mario? Mario.draw. So what are we gonna pass into our Mario? We are going to pass in game time, which is passed it up here, and the sprite bats, which we have. Alright, so let's see how we did. Let's see what we got here. Screw you, Advance! I hate you so much. It does this every project I try to load. I could just change the settings, but I'm really just too lazy to do it. Alright, come on. Continue execution. There's our Mario. Look at him. Look how sexy he is. He's looking mighty fine there. So that's pretty cool, huh? Mario's on the screen. Let's do a little movement for Mario. So how do we move Mario? Well, we do a little bit like this. Remember, we get the keyboard state, and that's equal to the keyboard.getState, which is a function which returns the state of the keyboard. Not what the hell was that? Oh god, did my computer turn to French? Oh god, it did. Sometimes my sometimes my keyboard has a tendency to turn to like French, and that pisses me off. So if keyboard state dot is key down, so this will determine if a certain key is down, and the certain key we want to check is keys dot up. That's on the up keys. What we're going to do is we're going to go Mario dot position dot x. I have a little bit of problems with this. We're going to want to plus equals. Oh no, wait, I don't want to go up. I want to go right. There we go. Plus equals 5.0 pixels. That's how many pixels are. You're going to complain, aren't you? Yeah, I freaking hate that crap. Alright, well, we might as well assign. I don't know why it does this. So what we have to do is we have to assign it a new vector 2. And we're going to want to move it along the x-axis. So the first one's going to be Mario.position.x plus 5.0f. And then we don't want it to move on the y, so we're just going to Mario.position.y. There we goes. So that's going to make him move left. I'm not going to do the other ones for now because I'm running a bit over time here. Sorry about this, but there is a lot to do. A lot to do. Alright. So now this will make Mario. There he goes. I can't go back. Maybe I'll start him a little. Start him a little less. There we go. Let's change those values. There he is. Look at him fly. He can't go backwards. Cool. So there's our Mario. Now what we want to do is let's create a background. We're going to Sprite. No, not song. Sprite background. We're going to load it just like we did with the Mario. Background equals new Sprite. Not going to populate it with anything. This is how you'd have to do the access name though, because if you run it right now and try to load, so if we try to do this, dot load content, try to do this, it's going to give you a bit of a problem. Boom. That's because we haven't set the asset name yet. So let's stop this running. So what you have to do is you have to access the background dot asset name, and that equals a string Let's call Mario background. Boom, diddling, done. That's how you'd access it outside, as well as you can move the position of it as well, but I don't want to move the position. I want it to be 0, 0. I don't want to do any updating on it, but I do have to draw it before the burial. So we'll draw that. Game time. Sprite batch. So now let's run it, and our background should show. Oh, but remember what happened? Our background was a bit too large. So how do we fix that? Well, let's head back to our sprite. We have the draw functionality, but all the draw functionality does one thing. It simply draws the position. But we have another one which last time we fitted into a source. So let's do that one. We're going to create a public void draw. And then we are going to game time, sprite, that sprite batch. Next we're going to call it a rectangle. We're going to call it source. And then we're pretty much just going to copy and paste all this. Fill her in. And the only difference, we're going to change position to source. Now I believe there's an extra. It's a destination range origin. And it takes something slightly different. We have the texture, the vector. No, we don't want the position. Want the rectangle destination? No, color tint. Rotation. Vector 2. We don't have a scale. This is the one that doesn't take in the scale because you define it by the source rectangle. Alright? So that's all cool. So let's pass in a new rectangle. The rectangle is going to be starting at 0, 0. And it's going to be graphics device dot viewport dot width divided by 2, and then graphics device dot viewport dot height dot height divided by, oh no wait, I don't want to divide by 2, that's stupid of me. I want it to be the size of the window. No dividing by 2. It's like dividing by 0, except tastier. Boom! There's our background, there's our Mario. Whee! So let's try doing some interesting stuff. Like first of all, let's set Mario's sprite effect here. We're gonna say Mario dot flip equals Sprite Effects dot horizontal. Why the hell not? And then we're going to do Mario dot scale equals 0.5 because I want to be half the size. So that's cool, right? Let's try that. Oh, a stupid F. Always put the F. F after floats. Boom, there's Mario. Also notice he's backwards and he's flying backwards. That's dangerous, Mario. What else did we put into our sprite? Well, we can change the tint later, but what we did the flip. The origin not really important right now, and we change the position as we move. But let's do something else that's really fun. It's going to be highly nauseating, but it should be fun. So we're going to do Mario in the update. We're going to do Mario dot rotation plus equals 0.1 F. What do you think is going to happen? Oh my god, look at Mario. Look at Mario. Whoa, Mario. What are you doing, you crazy plumber? He's just kind of spinning. Now you notice there's a bit of an issue there. He was spinning because the drawing takes place here, our origin is set to there, which means he's rotating at this point. So we don't want to do that. So up here, we're going to want to set our origin. Oh no, sorry, not right here. This will cause a problem if we do it right here. We want to do it after we've loaded the content. So we want to load Mario. We're going to do Mario dot origin equals new vector 2. We're going to do Mario dot texture dot width divided by 2. Now this is why you want to do it after you've loaded it, because texture hasn't, at this point here, before this, the texture of Mario hasn't been loaded. So if you try to do Mario.texture.width, it will blow up in your face. We don't want that. Well, it'll cause a null error exception. Suck it, son of a bitch. And height to be divided by 2. So now that's going to set our origin. So the width is over here, so it's going to cut it in half, and our height is all the way down here, and it's going to cut that in half. So now our origin is going to be right there. So let's do this. Boom! Look at Mario go. He is one crazy ass plumber. I can't go backwards. I should have gone backwards. But oh well. That's crazy Mario for you. We'll just put in a few little things here. And then we'll do the keyboard state positioning bull crud. We'll just copy that. And then we'll just do the left key. There we go. And we'll actually -5. And then Mario disappeared by that way. Why did Mario disappear? Did I do something wrong? What did I do wrong? Mario's gone now. What did I do? Did I set anything else? I don't think I touched anything else. Oh, whoops. Totally my fault. Oh, let's just do that. Yeah, that put him a little off screen. Boom! So there's that wacky plumber spinning in the sky around and around and around. Is that not cool? So now we have our Sprite class that will handle almost anything we want. You can also change the color, but I'm not going to do that. So folks, thank you for watching, and once again, we'll leave Mario in a drunken state leaving us. Bye now.